we need to think of a new advert for freebets.com.
Get your best betting offers from freebets.com.
Yeah, that'll do.
The following deals are now live.
Matt Lenihan Boxing Social in association with freebets.com, Empire Fight Store and Forged Irish Stout. We're here, Gareth A. Davies, once again. I appreciate you giving us some of your time. How are we, sir?
Very well indeed, thank you. Just had a fun Monday night with my old US publicist, John Beer, in Soho. But before that, I went on, which was unusual, went on Anthony Ogogo's podcast, Getting Back Up. And a very interesting guy he is. Obviously, he's a wrestler now.
Yeah,
after all the eye surgeries. And he's got an event, I think it's Sundays, in a wrestling event in Croydon. So, no, good luck to him. He's a great guy. We had a lot of reminiscing about 2012. Obviously, he was a bronze medalist in the middleweight division, which is very much in focus at the moment. And I'm really glad to see he's well, because he went through absolute agony with all the eye surgeries. And I've known him a long time now, I would say probably 17 or 18 years. So it was lovely to see him and catch up with him, because he's based in America.
100%. I remember last seeing him. He was in, I believe it was AEW in the wrestling circuit.
Yeah, that's right.
So that was brilliant, considering everything he went through with that eye injury. To get that sort of push in the limelight after going through what he went through, I thought that was 100%.
I think boxing will always be his first love, and it feels a little bit like he had a divorce from that he never wanted, and I think wrestling fills the gap slightly, but nothing fills the gap like boxing did for him, you know. So he was totally addicted and in love with it, basically.
I'm not surprised. Right, look, let's bounce straight into it. Whatever time this interview goes out, just bear in mind there's not been an official announcement by Canelo Alvarez, but he is tipped to give everyone a bit of insight on his next move. Strong rumours saying Jermall Charlo, obviously brother Jermall, who Canelo shared the ring with recently. So if it is that, and it's not a Benavidez fight, what's your take on this, Gareth, if we are to see Canelo and Jermall Charlo get back in the ring?
Jermall Charlo never got out of the box against Canelo, did he? Canelo didn't let him, and it was a very, I don't want to be too critical, but you could use the word insipid, but he was just a very defensive performance. Jermall Charlo, even though they're twins, who's the naturally bigger of the two, obviously, who is still the WBC middleweight champion, although he's been out. I think he's still the WBC middleweight champion.
Yeah, just on that, I know we said he was out a long time. He did have a fight in November, but it was sort of I think a lot past it against Jose Benavidez Jr. But he had been out, like you said, from then like 2 years.
He obviously had the fight in November, but he'd been very inactive. Things going on in his life. Obviously, he was the first choice for Canelo in that last fight. He's got a different style. It'll be more of an aggressive style. It's a style that suits Canelo. I think this is a guy that will come and throw his hands and will take it to Saul Canelo Alvarez. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's obviously the May the 4th event in Las Vegas. Yeah. Planning to be there. I think it will be a big build-up to the undisputed heavyweight title that month. So it'd be great to be there in the milieu and in the mix for that Vegas week. It's always a huge Cinco de Mayo, or it'll be the Cuatro de Mayo. The Cuatro de Mayo, the 4th of Cuarto de Mayo, rather than the Quinto de Mayo, Quince de Mayo. So it will be, God, listen to me and my troublesome Spanish there today. But it'll be on the 4th of May, not the 5th. Yeah, it'll be the Cinco de Mayo event, yeah, which obviously is one of the big pay-per-view hits always in America with around September the 10th. So, yeah, I'm okay with it. It's not official yet, of course, but you know, it reminds me of late on in Saul Canelo and late on in Floyd Mayweather's career. I mean, he took Saul Canelo Alvarez very young, when he was a young bull in the ring, and took him at the right time, and was masterful. Canelo's taking people as he wants to take them now. The disappointment will be that it's not Jaime Munguia or it's not David Benavidez, or it's not Terence Crawford, even, for example, who's started to push that fight a little bit with Canelo. And it's a fight that I've thought about for a while that I'd love to see, the welterweight against maybe a Canelo that gives him between middle and super middle, something like that.
Is it going to be too much of a jump for Crawford, considering how high Canelo's operated at? I know it's almost like a fantasy fight, isn't it? Almost.
Yeah, it is, but it's a huge money-making fight in America and would generate massive interest. I remember when I was covering Manny Pacquiao's career, and he was slated to face Oscar De La Hoya, and even in the Philippines, in the parliament in the Philippines, there was debate about Manny was going to get killed in the ring by Oscar De La Hoya. And there is always this worry about size differences, and there are weight divisions for a reason. But I just feel, even though it's a very tough fight for Terence Crawford, I think his skills may allow him to handle himself against Canelo. It's a fascinating fight. Whether it'll ever happen or not, I don't know. Crawford's definitely up for it.
Yeah.
It's whether Canelo could face the possibility of losing to a guy. Let's be honest, Terence is not a small welterweight either. He's a natural welterweight, and he could easily fight at light middle. But I think, and I don't know if Canelo could get down to middleweight again. So, these are big fights that could be made, and they're both coming towards the end of their careers. Terence is 35 now, I think. So even though he hasn't got a lot of mileage on the clock. So Canelo's teasing us a little bit. He's doing this guy in May. He's getting his third PBC contracted fight out of the way as well, because Jermall Charlo, the WBC middleweight champion, is contracted to the WBC. And then he's free. So the September fight that he has, if it's in September, if he chooses to fight only twice this year, will be enormous.
Just sort of moving away from that onto another big name. Not heard from him, I don't think, since Saudi Arabia, but Deontay Wilder. Yes News, they've put out a video. He sort of gave his reaction to the Joseph Parker defeat. He's mentioned, for example, he's quoted saying, in training for that, I've had to travel 2 times, 20 hours of traveling. These guys are already in Europe. They were only a couple of 2 or 3 hours away. I'm just saying what I had to go through. Mentioned the fight being, quote unquote, it was a boring fight. Nothing really happened. I went back to training that day. Was that a little bit of a disservice to Joe Parker who put on a good performance that night?
Yeah, it's always two sides to the story, aren't there? And his perception is that he didn't deliver on the night. We know that Joseph Parker did, in arguably the performance of his career in terms of tactical nous and the meticulousness and perspicacity with which he implemented that game plan under Andy Lee, and he made very few faults in that. No, Deontay's making excuses there for himself, but they're good excuses. They show his resilience and desire to be relevant again in the heavyweight division. Yes, it's an excuse, but he's dedicating himself again. The videos have started to come out again with him and Malik Scott out there working really hard in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. But jet lag could hurt him. Maybe he did leave it too late to come out there. Maybe the ayahuasca retreat did affect him too much. Maybe, he is getting older. He's 37 now, I think. Maybe he came up against the wrong guy who had the kryptonite for him. What Joseph Parker did was nullified the big right hand. He went under it and he landed his big right hand himself and was fairly aggressive in the fight. I think it was am I thinking the 9th round where he poured it on Wilder? I've lost track of which round it was now, but there was one round when Joe was in his own corner where he hammered Wilder, and I remember Tally Swift being off her seat saying, "Baby, get out of the corner," and all this kind of stuff. I always say that because I interviewed her that night, and she was phenomenal. A very gracious couple they are. I'd love to see him back, Matt. I would love to see him back. I still think he's got things to give. I still think him and Ngannou's a good fight. I still think him and Joshua's a good fight. And even him and Usyk's a good fight if it all lasts long enough. Why not?
that's what I was going to come on to next. You know, if he is, he's mentioned becoming more of a gym rat again. I have to say in that interview, you know, spending more time in the gym, which I think is a good sign for him and for boxing fans, because when he's on and he's in his zone, he's exciting to watch. You don't know what's going to happen, kind of thing. But you see that dance partner for him with certain fighters tied up at the minute. If he was to come back in, I don't know, in say the next few months, is there anyone out there now you think, you know what, that would be a good fight for him?
There are 5 or 6 good fights for him. That anyone in the top 10. I mean, you know, I'm looking down the heavyweight rankings here. I would see him in against. Well, he's got to have a challenge that, you know, Frank Sanchez, Agit Kabayel, Jared Anderson, Daniel Dubois, Flip Hrgovic, Martin Bakole, Joe Joyce has got a fight coming up. Obviously, Joshua's tied up with Ngannou. Fury's tied up with Usyk. Flip Hrgovic is going to be on that card, I think, on March the 8th, isn't he? Or no, May the 18th.
Yeah.
There's a ton of great fights you could put him in at the moment. So the dice is being rolled for him. Another performance like that, and people will really say, well, he doesn't belong at the top level anymore.
Yeah.
But then again, with Deontay, 2 inches in the right direction, the right punch, and he could change everything. He didn't carry that air of menace when we were ringside for Day of Reckoning on December the 23rd in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, but Joseph Parker didn't let him.
Yeah, 100%. It's a good way of putting it. Want to come on to, wrote down here, Carl Froch has been, and obviously a colleague of yours, has been in on TalkSport, I think it was either yesterday, made these comments in relation to Tyson Fury, who, by the way, he did say in this sort of segment, I'm not just picking out bits he said, but he's favour Tyson Fury in the fight with Oleksandr Usyk. He made that clear. He still favours him. He did say, he said he can't do it at 35-year-olds now. He's sitting flat-footed, getting hit more with shots, getting on 35 years of age, bigger, heavier. But once again, he did say that he does give him the advantage in the Usyk fight. What do you make of the comments on like Tyson Fury and being flat-footed? And you know, obviously he's changed. He's got older. Have you seen that sort of change, or?
Well, he plants his feet more now because he lands heavier shots, and
the style.
Yeah, it's a style change, and it does come with age. There were three eras or 3 stages, three types of Muhammad Ali. There was the guy that moved like a featherweight, and had the speed of a middleweight. And then at the end of his career, there was a guy who planted his feet more in the mid 70s, when he fought George Foreman. Obviously, he did rope-a-dope against George Foreman, but in the fight with the third fight with Frazier, with Joe Frazier, they both just planted their feet. They couldn't miss each other in that fight. I remember it was still a 15-rounder in those days, and as Ali said, it's the closest I'll ever come to death. I mean, and they were different types of fighters. The Tyson Fury's style has changed over time. If you think the herky-jerky feinting style that he had when he first fought Wilder, that is now. Is that 5 years ago? I think it's nearly 5 years ago. So, he does plant his feet more and throw heavier now, and uses 19.5 stone. We saw that against Wilder in the second fight and the third fight. I think the fight with Francis Ngannou, we still got to look at it as an anomaly, or it's a sign of something he's going through at the stage in his career. I think Carl's being very honest, but quite harsh in one way, but like I said, on the money on the other, because I think Fury is the favourite to beat Usyk. And with a cut eye, he might be looking to get work done a bit quicker rather than just looking to outbox Usyk. But I think Carl's right. I mean, I think where he's wrong is calling out John Fury for a fight, really. I don't really think that's clever or wise, and I just hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think he sort of clarified them. And to give the flip side to that, from what I saw with himself, Simon Jordan and Spencer, he addressed, because originally it was John doing the call out. And I think he said, look, I don't go in there and fight. a John Fury goes, maybe let John go and fight some of the guys who are calling him out at his age and see what he can do. But he's no intentions of doing that, which I thought fair enough. He's come out and at least said that. But look,
well, I hope. I know obviously Joe Egan is calling John out as well, and I'm not sure I want to see those 58, 59-year-old men fighting each other particularly. Some people might want to see it, but I don't. Joe's a great character. I've met him many times. I've got great admiration for him. He's done a lot of interviews recently where he tells his life story, and it's an extraordinary life, rather like John Fury's. Both have had extraordinary lives, very hard lives, very tough lives. And the last thing I want to see is those two getting in a beef over nothing, really, in fairness, and it going wrong for either of them or them getting hurt. If they need the money, and they both want to do it, and I think they're trying to push it on the Misfits card or something, or certainly Joe Egan's side. We shall see, but I just don't want any trouble between them because I've great respect for both men. If they want to do it, great, and I would probably go and cover it, Matt. But because they both got such standing in the boxing world, but it's not a fight I particularly want to see.
Yeah, I sort of share that sentiment, especially when you talk about age and things like that. But last two from me. Lomachenko, Kambosos agreed for Australia. We've not touched on that yet. Kambosos, I saw the press conference, saw the quotes. He talked. He talks an extremely good game, and he's had a great win over your Teofimo Lopez. Less convincing over obviously Max Hughes and Devin Haney beat him. Lomachenko coming into, I suppose, the final stretch of his career, but still with stuff to offer. How do you see that panning out there in Australia?
A beats B, B beats C, and C beats A sometimes in the triangle of life. And obviously, like you say,
great way
Devin Haney. Well, Devin Haney's got the 2 victories over him. Very, very convincing. Brilliant second performance. George Kambosos had an amazing performance against Teo Lopez. And Lopez is up and down, it seems. Lopez has the victory over Vasyl Lomachenko. But I just feel that Lomachenko's skills, if he's still got it, I think he's 35 now.
Yeah.
In the hometown, George will be very buoyed. I'm a huge fan of George. I love the Spartan. He's a great character. He's brilliant to interview, heart on his sleeve, and he will fight like that against Lomachenko. Lomachenko's learned that he can't start a fight very slowly, as he did against Teo Lopez. Obviously, I had the fight with Devin Haney, 7-5 to Devin over Teo Lopez. It's a great series of fighters and fights being made. Well done, Bob Arum and Top Rank, getting all these fights over the line, as well as Eddie Hearn getting Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia over the line as well with Oscar De La Hoya. Really pleased about that on April the 20th. That's a fight I wouldn't mind being at as well, even though I favour Devin Haney big time to win that. But I'm, again, a huge aficionado of Ryan Garcia. I just think Kambosos may struggle against the skills of Vasyl of Loma if he's on form, but it's a terrific fight because, as you know, with Loma against all these guys, they're all bigger than him physically, naturally, so that they can go in there and they can be bullish with him. But over and above all of that, it's fantastic. I'm just going to plug my laptop in, by the way. I'm just running out of power here. Just one sec. There we go. No need to cut that, Matt. Cut that. Just a little blooper. No power. Please ask me though about Hamzah Sheeraz at the weekend, or even Lopez and Keyshawn, because I interviewed Keyshawn yesterday, and it was great to catch up with him. I got hammered a little bit for saying ex-marijuana smoker about Keyshawn Davis. Right. But the big build-up was about him giving up marijuana, and I spoke to him about it yesterday, and he said, "I'm again huge aficionado. Things he can do."
Well, let's talk. They're both on my list to talk about. So just start as you sort of started that off. Then you spoke to Keyshawn. They had a bit of a thing, didn't they, at the end of the fight? He got through a good win against Pedraza, but him and Teo at the end of the fight, they had a bit of back and forth ringside. You mentioned that you've spoke to him. You get a feeling like Keyshawn and Teo at some point, because Keyshawn's been long tipped to be a world champion or to be fighting at that level. Do you think now's the right time?
Not just long tips. Bob Arum has been on at me about Keyshawn for 3 or 4 years. Whenever I mention Shakur Stevenson, Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Teo Lopez, he said, hang on a minute, Keyshawn Davis. And he's only had 9 fights, remember? And he took his licks against Pedraza in that. We discussed it yesterday. It'll be out on the TalkSport YouTube channel, and the interview we played out on Fight Night on Saturday night. In fact, in our midweek show that I'm recording later today as well with Adi Oladipo. He was brilliant. I thought he was fantastic on the night. What I liked about him was he took his licks from Pedraza, who's a world-level operator. Yeah, 10 years older. But Keyshawn has taken a leap up with this, in my view. I think he belongs in that mix. And I think he'll fight at 135, 140, 147. He might even go up to 154. 154, he told me yesterday. And I want to make this clear. When I spoke to him, when I tweeted about ex-marijuana user, the reason I did that was because he is a fantastic role model in his community in Norfolk, Virginia. And I've spoken to him about it. And I'm a huge admirer of the man, what he does both inside and outside the ring. And I think he's going to be one of the standout stars in the next 5 to 7 years in our sport.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of seeing him in Oklahoma on the undercard of Kambosos and Maxi. And yeah, he's someone you see on TV and you think so. When you see him live, he is. Everyone in that gym seems to have that air of when they're under pressure, they're not. They're so comfortable in the ring. Like you see Terence, the way they're on the ropes and the way they move, the way they use the angles. He's a special talent, and talks of him in like the Andy Cruzes of this world and things like that. When you see them both coming, you're talking about mega fights down the line.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's touch on Hamzah Sheeraz. Great win. Not many people do that. No one does that really to a Liam Williams, a seasoned pro he had aspirations himself of kicking on after that fight again, and Hamza stops him in his tracks. He's on a terrific run of form. He looks like he's going to be one of the next sort of stars from this country. Just give me your thoughts after a destructive performance.
Yeah, it was exactly that. Well, it was. I mean, God, it didn't last long, did it? I mean, he battered Liam Williams from pillar to post, and then went straight over to that post. And said, I respect you. I've always looked up to you. I've followed you. And you could just see the disappointment in Liam Williams melt by the grace and charisma and respect that Hamzah Sheeraz has put out. And I've become friends with Hamza over the last year or so. I say friends, colleagues, if you like, in our industry. I got to know him a little bit better. Found out he's left-handed on Saturday night as well, by the way. Because I interviewed him afterwards, and his dad was a very good fast bowler for Gloucestershire, and he got 6 West Indian wickets one day in a game, bowled out Brian Lara as well. I think Kamran is his dad. I think it's Cameron Sheeraz. He'd been a lovely man anyway. Spent a bit of time with him out in Riyadh recently as well. He's a huge middleweight. There's great fights out there for him. He's really broken through, Matt. He's working on his skill set all the time. It's escaped my mind. He's obviously working out of America. He's in great hands out there. He's improving all the time. He's got massive power, huge reach, giant middleweight. We don't want to see him get too involved in a war. But what I do think we want from him is not to go up too quickly. I mean, Frank Warren's mentioned Yanibek Alimkhanuly, the WBO middleweight champion, I think Yanibek is. Who's 15-0 with 10 knockouts, who's a rock. But there are, in that performance that Denzel Bentley put against Yanibek, I thought we saw chinks there that could be exploited by someone like Hamzah Sheeraz. But there's Nathan Heaney out there. There's a Chris Eubank Jr. fight if he wants it. There's loads of great fights.
Is that going to be the issue now? The fact that he's on this great run to make sure the next step is the right one. You mentioned Yanibek there, but like I said, Nathan Heaney seems to be a good step. I think they were sort of angling at that on TNT. Would you like to see that fight?
Yeah. Ricky Funes is his head coach.
Funes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. I think
But you would like to see that fight, would you, next? With yeah.
Well, no, if he can get it, great. But for me, they don't want to rush him too much. But look, he's got great power. He's got great ability. If that fight's available, Frank's mentioned it. Frank's probably working on it. So, look, he's in LA. He's training with Ricky Funes, as I said. He's getting lots of practice against lots of different styles. That's what I love about him. He's very aware, Hamza, very aware of what his life is and his career is and all those things. And he's just a tremendous world-class prospect for me. And I like the comparison that Frank's made with Tommy Hearns because of that long reach and that massive jab. And as I said, as I've revealed through my interview with him on Saturday, that jab is his main hand. Yeah. That's his leading hand, the left hand. He's left-handed because he's a left arm quick when he bowls.
I'm going to say, I remember, I think Frank Warren made that comment as well in Poland on the Usyk Dubois undercard, saying reminds him of Tommy Hearns.
Yeah, he said it again on Saturday night. Also on that card, by the way, I loved the rapport between Anthony Yard, who's back to winning, and got another win under his belt, and then Joshua Buatsi ringside. Both men saying, "Let's get it cracking." I love it, absolutely love it. I do hope we get them fighting this time. I've got to say, Matt, what an amazing start to the year. We're only in mid-February.
Yeah.
But look already at all the fights lining up for the first half of the year. It's extraordinary.
I was going to say, when we looked at sort of mid to end last year, I think last year was a great year for boxing in terms of fights getting made. And it looks like this year it's sort of following suit. Would you agree?
Yeah, Matt, honestly, I want to even say this. In over 3 decades of covering boxing, this looks like one of the best halves of a year we've ever had. And I mean, domestically, internationally to the west and internationally to the east. We really are about to enjoy a halcyon period in the sport.
We're looking also like seeing, don't want to jinx it, but Catrell Taylor seems to be edging closer from what I can see. I know that sort of rumbled on, and maybe it's not the Haney's and the Garcias, but that's a great rematch that everybody wants to see, especially domestically. Yeah,
absolutely right. And it's a world level fight domestically with a domestic ding dong or dust up in the offing. It's brilliant.
Great fight. Well, look, Gareth, we've covered a heck of a lot there. I appreciate you giving us some of your time as always. Thanks for talking to Boxing Social. We'll catch up soon, hopefully, when we found out what's going on with Canelo and other developments. So I appreciate it, bud. Bro.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure, bud.
We need to think of a new advert for freebets.com.
Get your best betting offers from freebets.com.
Yeah, that'll do.
The following deals are now live.